start a new chapter in histology, the advanced histology. We recognized before the 4 different types of tissue أو تعرفتم على الأربع أنواع المختلفة من الأنسجة، وكانت الأنسجة الطلائية أو الإبيثيليال تيشو، ودي بتغلف أو بتطلي جسم الكائن الحي من الخارج. وتاني نوع الكونكتيف تيشو أو الأنسجة الضامة، ودي بتربط الأعضاء ببعضها، وكان بيطلق عليها أيضا الأنسجة الدعامية أو السستنتيكولار تيشو. وثالث نوع الماسكر تيشو الأنسجة العضلية. ورابع نوع النيرفس تيشو أو الأنسجة العصبية. تعرفتم على different types والstructure والfunctions بتاع each type of these tissue. Let's see how all these tissues are work together to perform their function inside the living organism. Let's start with the endocrine system. It's the system responsible for the hormone production inside the living organism. والهرمونال production inside the living organism have two ways. يا اما بيفرز عن طريق duct into the blood بيطلق عليه الاكسوكراين سيستم، او بيفرز directly into the blood او مباشرة عن طريق البلاد ساينوسويد او الجويبات الدموية وبيطلق عليه الاندوكراين سيستم. الاندوكراين سيستم بيحتوي او includes a gland غدد، مجموعة من الغدد زي الثايرويد، الباراثايرويد، البيتيوتري، الباينال او السرينال او السوبرارينال جلاند او الادرينال او السوبرارينال جلاند، او بيكونوا عباره عن mass of cells او مجموعه من الخلايا scattered in between certain organs زي التستس او الاوفري او البنكرياس. Thyroid gland, it's the largest endocrine gland and it weighs about 25 grams. Location just above the trachea on the ventrolateral side of it, and it's a bilobed organ, consists of two lobes, right lobe and left lobe, connected by transverse connection called isthmus. And this is the external structure of the thyroid gland. And the internal أو anatomical أو التركيب التشريحي عبارة عن capsule are of two parts. The outer part originating from the visceral fascia أو عبارة عن نسيج ضام فجوي أو aerial connective tissue comes from the neck region into upward علشان يغلف الثيرويد gland ويديها rigidity. The inner capsule, it's a fibroelastic connective tissue divided into inward into a septa. كل septa holding a blood vessels and lymphatics and nerve ending. وأيضا بتقوم بتقسيم ال inner of the thyroid gland into follicles أو lobule. Each one has the oval أو rounded أو rectangle shape called thyroid follicle. Each thyroid follicle lined with a follicle cells أو cells called follicular cells أو الأكينال cells of follicular epithelia, represent about 98 of the thyroid follicle cells. Another type of cells found in the thyroid follicle, it's a parafollicular cells, and it represent 2% of the follicular cells of the thyroid follicle. وبيطلق عليه أيضا السي cells. الباراfollicular cells just beneath the follicular cells and never reach to the lumen. And each follicle أو each thyroid follicle holding a jelly-like substance called a colloid or thyroglobulin. Thyroglobulin, it's the inactive form of a thyroid secreted hormone, thyroxine, and they become activated by TSH hormone or thyroid stimulating hormone produced by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. And all these thyroid follicles are holding together by a connective tissue called an intrafollicular connective tissue. What is the hormones produced by the thyroid gland? The first hormone is the thyroxine hormone, and the second hormone is the calcitonin hormone. Thyroxine hormone produced by the follicular cells, and the calcitonin hormone produced by the parafollicular cells. What is the structure of the thyroxine hormone? Thyroxine hormone, it's an amino hormone, or it's an iodine containing hormone. It's an amino acid or tyrosine amino acid plus iodine. The iodine percent, it's about 65%. It has two formula, T3 formula and the T4 formula. T3, it's a triiodothyronine, and the T4 a tetraiodothyronine. Let's make a small comparison between the two formula. T3, it's a 10% of the thyroxine hormone, and the T4 90% of the thyroxine hormone. T3 the lag period it's about 2 to 3 days أو فترة نصف العمر اللي بيقضيها داخل البلاد أو inside the blood stream حوالي يومين أو 3 أيام so that it's much more quicker than the other one which is T4 hormone. اللاج period بتاعته بتكون حوالي 8 to 10 days. الفانكشن of الثايروكسين هرمون it regulates the basal metabolic rate أو PMR by cellular respiration and the ATP production by الميتوكوندريا and thus result in controlling all physical, mental and sexual growth and result in what's known about the calorigenic effect. Calorigenic effect produced by the regulating basal metabolic rate under the influence of a thyroxine hormone. Another function is the homeothermy on warm-blooded animals. Homeothermy means that the body temperature it's remain constant under the effect of a thyroxine hormone, and it can control the calcium and the phosphate uptake and the protein synthesis, so that each energy production or energy function produced in the living organism it's under the influence of the thyroxine hormone, so that the thyroxine hormone it's very important for the development or growth of the living organism. Another important function is the differentiation of the cells. That means that cell can be differentiated to a specific cell to perform a specific function. Example, in toad or in frogs, the metamorphosis. Metamorphosis means transformation from the larva to the adult stage. By removing the thyroid gland from the toad, the metamorphosis stop, and by injection of the thyroid hormone or thyroxine hormone back into the toad, the metamorphosis takes place. If the production of the thyroxine become less or more. If become less production of the thyroxine hormone, it results in the hypothyroidism phenomenon. If there is an overproduction of the thyroxine hormone, result in the hyperthyroidism phenomenon. Hypothyroidism result may be from low iodine intake in the diet of the living organism through the water consumption or through the salt consumption, or maybe due to an injury to the gland. And in infant result in a phenomenon known as cretinism. Cretinism characterized by low basal metabolic rate, which result in reducing in the metabolism and the energy production inside the living organism, and thus result in reducing in the protein synthesis, which result in deformity in many parts of the living body, and also result in low mental growth and low IQ, and also the lowering of basal metabolic rate result in low body temperature and low heart rate and low pulse and low blood pressure and low sugar. Also, the cretinism characterized by the pigeon chest. Instead of a normal bone chest, it become curved and produce the pigeon chest. In adult, result in myxedema. Myxedema characterized also by low basal metabolic rate and low body temperature and low heart rate and low pulse, and characterized by swelling of the face and the hand due to the decomposition of the mucus under the skin. Increased production of thyroxine hormone result in exophthalmic goiter. The exophthalmic goiter reduced as a result of a high basal metabolic rate and high pulse, and result in high body temperature and the fever of the patient, and enlargement of the thyroid gland, and hence the name goiter, and enlargement or bulging of the eye pole due to the edema under the eye, and the name exophthalmic goiter. Exophthalmic result from the bulging of the eye, and goiter result from the enlargement of the thyroid gland. Parathyroid gland are 4 in number. It's a 30 milligram and embedded partially or completely on the surface of the thyroid gland, 2 in the upper part and 2 in the lower part. 40% of it, if its normal content, it's adipose tissue, and the hormone secreted by it from the endocrine cells called chief cell or principal cells, and result in parathormone or PTH. الفانكشن اوف البي تي اتش increase الكالسيوم ليفل in البلاد عن طريق زياده الابسوربشن اوف الكالسيوم from the intestine and increase the activity of الاوستيوكلاست او الخلايا الهاضمه للعظم وبتؤدي الى break down of البون and release الكالسيوم. What are the different shape of cells present inside the parathyroid gland? The first type is the Schiff cell or principal cell and the oxyphil cell. The Schiff cell are small in size and polygonal in shape and form the majority of the gland with a rounded nuclei. السيتوبلازم بتاعها بيكون clear cytoplasm have no granules, secrete the PTH hormone أو الباراثورمون and sometimes have a dark cytoplasm due to the excess of the rough endoplasmic reticulum أو الشبكة الإندوبلازمية اللي من نوع الرف وده دلالة على increase activity of the gland أو increase the production of the PTH. The oxyphil cells are larger in size and with a deeply stained nuclei and with eosinophilic cytoplasm due to the higher content of the mitochondria does not have known a recognized function or does not produce any type of الهرمونز.